Hey everyone, welcome to week 23, day one. This is Monday. And for this week's theme, we're going to call it the Beast. And it's actually making reference to two of past week's themes, which is my fears week and the getting to know you week, where I drew Danny for the whole of that week. So if you mix those together, it's not that I'm afraid of Danny, but I'm actually horrified of painting this light post. This post that is, right outside our apartment, and it's our view. If you peek out the window, you just see this light post, and it has a ton of cables, and it's super chaotic. And I don't mind the view. We both don't mind it at all. But it's just that it's otherworldly in a sense, and I've always been afraid of drawing or painting it. So I told myself, no, this is going to be my subject matter for the week, and I'm going to try to exercise that demon. It's not going to be like the fears week where I do one painting. No, this is going to be a whole week of trying to explore this very menacing thing outside, and hopefully by the end, I'm not going to be so afraid of it anymore. So, that's my hope. So let's see how we do today. Okay, let's get started. Now, for this week, I thought we would do a sort of mix between two themes that we had done previously. And I think it was inspired by that palm tree, by that sunset lit palm tree that I saw when I was walking to the grocery store. And I decided it was going to haunt me no more. And I was going to try and do my best to paint it. But the thing is that when we did the fears week, when we faced our fears during that week, we were doing one painting, a different painting for every day of the week. And I really don't feel that you can overcome something just by painting it once. You can gather enough courage and have an experience that kind of teaches you that you're not supposed to be afraid of anything. But I feel that whatever is learned is, in the end, I don't want to call it superficial, but it's as much as you can learn through a one session painting. So I think we can dig in a little bit deeper. And the reason I wanted to dig in deeper and mix that facing your fears week with a week where I drew Danny with color pencils, which was called, if I'm not mistaken, Getting to Know You. So the idea behind this is that there is something in my life that I see every day, every single day, that is probably as horrifying or maybe worse than that palm tree, because at least the palm tree is very organic and I feel that it's part of nature. But this thing that I see every day is this light post that we have right outside. And it is like our view outside our window. That's what we get. Like, this big light post with this big generator. But whenever I see it, I'm not afraid of it, but I always feel like it's way too overwhelming. Like I said, with the palm tree, you kind of get a feeling that there is a way to simplify it through paint. But with this thing that is produced, this is not an organic object. This thing is just man-made. And every time I look out and see it, I'm like, oh my God, it's so chaotic. It's almost like a spider that has like all these legs just stretching out of this body and they go off to the sides. I really feel that it is almost wild. And hence the name for this week, the Beast. We have to tame this beast because it is something that I really don't feel that I'm capable of either drawing or painting. The amazing thing is that my first initial reaction was like, I have to draw this. It's just so conducive to drawing. Whenever you see power lines, whenever you see cables and light posts and, all the information that is kind of intrinsic to an electrical light post, it just seems like the abstract expression that is line work is perfectly exemplified by all these power lines. And the first thing that crossed my mind was like, I'm just going to do like a charcoal drawing, or I just have to do line work. It has to speak about line weight. It has to speak about line quality. This is absolutely perfect. And it took me back like 20 years when I took a John Ruggieri drawing class. And I think I've mentioned John. I think he's one of the most talented draftsmen I've ever met and one of the kindest teachers and most passionate teachers that I've ever met. John would do drawing on location, and we would go out to different settings in New York, and it was just about sitting down and drawing. That doesn't seem like anything nowadays. There's a ton of people that work plein air. There's a ton of painters that do the exact same thing. And a lot of people would argue, well, it's actually harder with paint. You have to deal with a lot more variables. Drawing, you can just worry about tone, value, and solely worry about line quality. And I don't know. I mean, whenever I saw John solve something through drawing, I was like, that is as complex as you can get. There's nothing that can be harder in art, I feel. Whenever I saw what he was looking at and the way he would eventually decipher what was in front of him into drawn decisions, into this choreography of lines, it was just magic. Still today, if you took me out drawing, I would be just insanely overwhelmed. And I have no idea how he did it. I mean, obviously it is a matter of practice, but just the way he would navigate a drawing, the way he would traverse a drawing would just be so masterful. It's almost as if the drawing itself was telling him where to go. And he coupled that with an energy that I've very seldom seen in any artist. I mean, he was almost like bursting at the seams when he was drawing. You know, people can look at this act and see such a plain act of drawing. They probably see somebody doing this at a coffee shop or like a bookstore or at a park, and they would go like, oh, somebody's sketching, and that's about it. But the truth is, there's just sparks going on, you know, inside your brain when you're doing it. And I have never been so exhausted in my life, I think, as I was when I was drawing in his class. It took so much energy. It was so draining just to be there looking at an urban landscape in New York full of people where you had to make on-the-spot decisions about what to draw, what not to draw, what to edit, what to compose, what your picture was going to look like. And here I was just thinking about proportions and measuring. And John was one of the first people who indirectly taught me that you can draw without measuring. You just measure while you draw, you know, which is sounds very simple again, but it's not. It's one of the hardest things in the world. You almost have to have a very concrete idea of what your image is going to look like just by putting a few strokes down. And I think John had that gift. I have a friend of mine who kept those ideals going. His name is Dan Zalkis. And I think Dan is an exceptional draftsman. He's absolutely in love with that type of drawing. And he's been able to sort of carry that torch that was very much present in the 50s, 60s, 70s illustration, where drawing was seen as reportage, where an artist's take as an eyewitness was very important and respected. And the artist had the ability, but also the responsibility to convey what was going on. Now, I'm talking a ton about drawing because initially when I saw this, I was just like, I have to draw this. Like, this is meant to be drawn. This is not really meant to be painted. And I don't know why. Again, I don't know if it was just all the line work that I saw, you know, quote unquote line work that I would see in this object, in my subject matter. But I thought to myself, well, just try to paint it. Try to like really condense it. Just try to speak about the very chaotic nature of this thing and just try to do it simply, which is something that I'm really not good at. I'm actually horrible at simplifying, and I'm hoping that this week is going to be just an excuse for myself to try and attempt to work towards simplification. Because when I see my subject matter, I'm like, okay, this is not going to be easy. I'm overwhelmed. I see so much information. And like I said, it's not like organic forms just kind of waving like I would get when I was doing the palm tree. No, this is man-made. These are industrial objects that have a shape and they're very precise. And when I look at that, I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I really don't. But I wanted to use the kind of chaotic nature that I see in my painting sometimes to see if I could just speak about, to see if I could echo the inherent qualities that I see in this object. Now, my initial reaction was just seeing it larger than life. It's a big post with a ton of power lines. And I thought, well, let's just try to do the whole thing. Let's see if I can just make it like a branch of a tree and how it just opens up. It just branches out, towards the sides. And instead of just looking at all of it just directly and trying to take that in, which was very, very hard for me, I was like, well, let's almost in our mind's eye just step back, like try to really, really step back and see if I could see it in a very fragile way. Like, what happens if I take this thing, this massive thing? I mean, it's not massive, but it just feels like that in my brain. This massive thing, and what happens if we transform it into something that's as light as a skinny little twig? That's what I kind of went for when I painted. I just wanted to sort of drain all this power that it has over me just by depicting it in a way that I could look at it and feel like it was less menacing. It's really amazing the power that drawing and painting can have, in the sense that we can reinterpret things and just make them into something that is far, far less scary for us. I loved that part. And so for this first one, I just wanted to strip this post from everything that was busy and noisy about it, because also, it's not like I can abstract the post and just see sky behind it. There's also buildings and the street. So there's a ton of information that is there that just creates this visual noise that, again, is very, very hard for me to almost like swallow, to digest. My hope was that by just thinking about it as a very, very simple little tree trunk that is going up and then is branching out, surrounded by these little masses of color, then it was going to be easy, I guess. I mean, I never thought of it as easy. The fact that I went about trying to paint this through sort of masses of color, I think it made it a little bit harder on myself, but that's totally fine. That's not an excuse. Because I felt overwhelmed, I do what I usually do, which is I try to go to my palette and look for something that gives me a little more control, and it strips away some of the qualities that I see in front of me, like saturation and a bunch of hues. So what did I do? I went with my 4-color palette. So we painted again with titanium white, yellow ochre, cad red, and ivory black. And I think that gave me the excuse to say, okay, there's all this stuff behind, but I can actually simplify all this information in the background into just little bits of masses of color that are sort of surrounding this central mass that is going to be the post. So the inclusion of all these color shapes that surrounded the object of my attention was actually pretty cool. At the beginning, I thought, okay, I have to just abstract that light post and simplify it and paint that light post. And that's it. I just have to focus in on it and then just paint it. I thought I was just going to put some color notes just surrounding it, just so that I could give myself a little bit of context into trying to figure out the color relationships. But as soon as I was putting down all these little bits of color, I realized, no, I can actually maybe speak about the sky in the back and the building in the back, and actually the ramp that's going into the building, and the street in the bottom, and then the house that's actually off to the right. I hinted at all those things, and I realized, wow, this is actually looking really good. This is looking like a depressed Diebenkorn, like a very, very kind of scrawny Diebenkorn, almost closer and more akin to his drawings. And even though I was almost laughing at how this was a very, very poor man's version, my version, of course, of a Diebenkorn, this is a gray city. This is not West Coast. This is Bogota. Bogota is super high up in the mountains, and traditionally all we have is like overcast, gray, silver sky. So I was like, I have to go for that. I have to really try and capture that, because the grayness that we usually see, it's part of the tone, it's part of the mood that is encapsulating this object. I can't just divorce it from that mood. I have to really think that it is one thing. The grayness that is enveloping this object is as important as the object itself. I have to try and make all of these things just kind of come together, and they're going to be super, super nice. And I think it worked. It's a tough painting to do, and it's my first encounter with this thing. So in a way, it's almost like the introduction. Mr. Lightpost, Mr. Power Lines, this is me. I'm going to attempt to paint you, and I'm going to get close to trying to understand you, but I'm just going to do it, inch by inch. This is not going to be a thing where you just masterfully do a painting and you're good. You tick that box. It's like, okay, light post, check. I could do this. I could so do this. Like, I'm so good at doing these. No, no, no. This is one of those things that I realized, okay, if I wanted to do this, I would really have to spend time with this object and try and understand it. And I think it's very refreshing when you feel that your job is not done. Like, this is the first moment, this is your first date with this thing, but you're not done. Like, you really want to wake up the next day and say, okay, let me try and do something else, and let me try to get to know a different aspect of you, a different facet of you. Let me see if you can show me something about your nature just by asking me to paint you in a different way. I was super grateful for that, because usually we think of just the execution of a painting, and if we got close to the nature of the thing we're looking at, then we feel great. And if we don't get close to that, then we feel like it's a failure. But I think that in this case, it was more about, okay, this is going to be a week-long relationship, so we have to start somewhere. And the somewhere I decided to start on was just kind of leveling the playing ground a little bit, seeing this thing that is larger than life and saying, okay, you know what? I'm just going to make you very thin, very fragile, very small, just so that I can see you. I like that, and I thought that it was a great way to start doing this. That was it for today. That's what we're going to do this week. We're going to tackle this one thing that really feels like it's haunting us, but we're not going to do it just once. No, we're going to try to do it again and again and again throughout the week. I'm not going to be painting the same painting. I'm going to try to paint almost like different views, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to go like street level. No, I'm going to try to paint it from just one spot all the time, but I'm going to paint different moments. I'm going to concentrate on different moments and see if I can just learn from it. That's the whole point. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys tomorrow for Spanish Tuesdays, where we'll see if we can tackle this monster in some other way. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.